Okay, so today we're having a look at the Cessna C510 Mustang by Cockspur in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So full disclosure, Cockspur actually came to me a couple of months ago while this was in development and let me have an early version of it to have a play with, and I chose not to record at the time because it wasn't finished and it would have given an unfair appraisal of the aircraft because there were so many systems that didn't work. Like you couldn't start it from cold and dark, for example, because a lot of the avionics weren't working. Anyway, we're going to jump inside. This is the version 1.0 of the aircraft that came out a couple of days ago. We're going to go and fire it up from cold and dark and take it for a flight around Oxford. We're taking off from Kidlington Airport. Okay, so it's wonderfully modelled, as you can see. We can obviously go around and have a look around inside. And it's actually a really difficult shape to model because it's all compound curves everywhere. So they've done a really good job with it, I think. And there's lots of clickable areas, like you can open the tray tables and things like that, as has become the normal trick people expect to see in these aircraft now. So can we open the door as well? So yeah, door opens, and whoops. So can we close it again? Yes, we can. So let's go and jump back in the pilot seat and see what we need to do to get this aircraft up and running. Okay, so we'll just remove the yoke so we've got some reference. First thing we're going to need to do is switch the power on. So it's got the G1000 NXI system inside it. It's worth pointing out actually, before we go much further, it's taken me a while to figure out how to start the aircraft up from cold and dark. Although they do give you this reference sheet, this really isn't much help on starting the engines and stuff like that. And there's no documentation and there's no checklist yet. So I think it's a bit of a stretch to call this a 1.0 release. It's not complete. The guidance just isn't there. Anyway, from what I have figured out after some trial and error over the last half an hour, what you need to do, so we've got the power on. We're going to go and turn on the nav lights and the beacon lights as you normally would to inform people on the ground that you're about to start the engines. You need to switch the levers on, the start levers on the throttles, which moves them from cut off to idle. And then you can start the engines. So I'm going to do both at the same time. It's not going to complain about it, bizarrely. So again, I do wonder about the accuracy, but I'm not a pilot of a C510, so I wouldn't know. So we're just running the engines up. You can see it's complaining over here about the pitot heat. There we go, engines are coming up to speed, the temperature is coming up, we're rolling past 25%. If we hadn't got those start switches on the throttles in place and we were still at shut-off, the starter motors would stop at about 25%. Okay, so we'll turn the generators on now, which makes the enunciation go away on the primary flight display. And it's complaining about pitot heat, so the switch for that is down here, so we'll turn that to pitot static, and that makes that go away. So we're essentially ready to fly at this point. We're not going to use a flight plan today, we're just going to use the static modes of the master control panel for the autopilot, so we'll have a play with heading mode and altitude hold mode, things like that, and just get the aeroplane to fly and see how it behaves really. Okay, so flaps to takeoff position. Just going to have a look outside to see all this happening. It's very loud. So it's one of the things that I think other reviewers have commented on is how loud this aeroplane is. So I'm going to press B as well to quickly calibrate the altimeter without having to look at a chart. I don't think D will do anything in this aircraft. D would normally calibrate a gyro compass in an old aeroplane to match the binnacle compass. But again, I don't think we need that. So let's have a quick look at a little nav map to find out where we are in the world and to get our bearings. So we are at Oxford, so we want to taxi down to runway 01 based on the wind. Okay, so we're going to come off the parking brake. I'm just rearranging my desk here slightly. So we'll come off the parking brake and we'll ease the throttles forwards. taxi round to runway 01 at Oxford. I'm not going to run any cars today because it would be complaining about taxi overspeeds and all sorts of things. The handling on the ground is really good. It's nice and predictable. So while we're just rolling around, let's go and set a target altitude for our climb out so we can have a play with the autopilot while we're flying around. So we'll go to 2,500 feet, I guess. So in common with lots of aircraft of this kind of type, with the engines at idle, there is a small amount of positive thrust which is allowing us to roll on idle. So getting rolling requires a bit of positive thrust or positive throttle, but then it will actually roll on its own, which is good. So we're just coming up to runway 01 at Oxford, heading into a slight left crosswind. Shouldn't be an issue. Again, we're not going to use a flight plan at all. So we've set the target altitude for 2,500 feet. Will it allow us to have vertical speed mode before we get there? Yes, it will. Can we do that? So we'll go for 1,000 feet a minute. So just rolling out to runway 01. Come up to the numbers and we'll bring ourselves to a halt. This is a payware version of Oxford, by the way. It's available in the marketplace, it's very reasonable. And we're going to go for... I'm just having a quick look around here. So we're going to set the heading bug. We can press the switch in for the heading, which centres it up on our direction of travel anyway. So we're going to go for heading mode as well. So we should just be able to switch the autopilot on. It'll be interesting to see if the vertical speed matches our vertical speed at the point we switch it on. Okay, so I'm going to ease the throttles forwards. So having to hold a little bit of rudder to maintain the centre line. Full throttle. To see what happens. Just watching those temperatures. So rotate, and we are up. Gear up. We've got a master caution. Check gear. Yeah, we've done that. So autopilot on. So climbing away at 1,000 feet a minute. Should we increase the rate of climb? See if it handles it. 2,000 feet a minute. We're still accelerating. Even with the throttles only at 80%. So it's fast. So we can see on the map, climbing out. So we are going to turn to 190 degrees for the downwind. So let's do that while we are turning. So we're going to spin the heading round to 190. Well, I'm impressed. The reflections on the canopy are very, very good as well. On the glass, not the canopy. It's not really a canopy, is it, in a business jet? Let's go and jump across the cockpit and have a look. It's a lovely day for flying. Or should I say, a lovely day for a test flight. It's good that on the default view, when you press F, that you've got a full view of the G1000 there. It's not always the case with aircraft. Sometimes the developers put the head position at a very strange angle, which means it's, you're having to always readjust or program a custom view. So we need to come off the throttles. We're getting above 250 knots there, which is not allowed. Below 10,000 feet, we should be staying below 250 knots. So it will coast then at about, let's watch those throttles. So about 67–68%, it will hold speed then below 250 knots, which is good to know. I've got a slight discrepancy there on the throttle numbers. I've got independent throttles on my setup. I'm using the Thrustmaster Airbus stick and quadrant. So we turn the anti-collision lights on. Again, not following proper procedures here. Absolutely will admit to that. We're just flying the aeroplane, seeing how it goes. So let's go and have a look on that map, see where we're going. Interesting. Oh, of course I went to 170, I didn't go to 190. Gives us more, room for coming in on approach actually. So let's come off the autopilot now and let's see how this handles. So if I give it full, it's nice that we have the sounds in the background. So if we have a look outside. Very, very responsive, I have to say. So do we get any warnings go off if we go to high bank angles? It doesn't appear to have too many warnings. So you pretty much can throw it around. We are going to be coming back into Oxford. On a visual approach to runway 01. So we're at 3,500 feet now. Against little nav map. So we're about 8 miles out. Seen an airport. Am I being really dim here? Ah, it's right in front of us. Okay, so far then the aircraft has actually performed wonderfully. It's very, very easy to fly. Very predictable. So let's try the spoilers. Do we have spoilers? It would appear we do, but they're not very effective. They're only tiny. But they are working. Okay, so gear down. Do we have landing lights? Yes, we do. So, except they're not letting me click on them. There we go. Full flaps. Gear down. Landing lights are on. Centre that view up. It's very easy to fly, it has to be said. It's interesting that the indicated airspeed ribbon doesn't show a stall speed. So I'm going to keep it around about the 100 knots mark, and we'll come over the apron and hold the airplane off the ground and find out when it falls. I'm having to use quite a lot of backstick already, so the plane is starting to fall. Ah, you can see at the 80 knot mark it seems to be the stall speed in this configuration, according to the ribbon, but we'll find that out over the runway. Okay, so I'm going to cut the engine to idle. So we're falling and falling. We've got a long runway here, so it's not a problem. Yeah, so it was about 80 knots then. We didn't get a warning klaxon, which is fine. Okay, so let's get flaps up. We'll roll on. Come off at the next exit. So yeah, this aircraft is it's great fun to fly. And very easy to fly, actually. My visual navigation skills need a bit of brushing up. But other than that, it was, yeah, very straightforward. There are bugs in it, but you have to remind yourself that it's a 1.0 release. While I was finding my way around the cockpit earlier, I had things like switches in reversed positions and things like that, and some switches causing other switches to move, which seemed a little bit odd. At one point I got the primary flight display to switch on at the off position. But again, you have to remind yourself, this is a small development team and it's version 1.0. Oh, that's interesting, look. So travelling much more than walking pace, you lose quite a lot of turn radius on the nose wheel steering. The stutter there was Oxford loading in, because it's pay west scenery. It's far more detailed than it needs to be. Yeah, it's stuttering again, look, really badly. And again. It's a common issue with flight sim that if pay west scenery becomes too detailed, the graphics card just starts stuttering badly. It's as it's loading assets, I think. Or as other aircraft are loading in even. Okay, let's go and park this back up. And let's find out how we cut the engines. I presume we just pull it back to cut-off. There we go. So generators can come off. The lights can all come off now. If you can use the mouse wheel on them as well if you get the mouse in the right place, but only on some of them, which is quite annoying. Static pitot heat goes off. The avionics can come back to off, and then the batteries can come back to off, and we are essentially cold and dark again. Okay, so there we go. The Cessna C510 Mustang from Cockspur is about €24, 25 euros, which works out about £22 in the UK, so it's probably about $25 as well. It's very good. Obviously, it is a 1.0, and you have to remind yourself of that. It's a shame there's no documentation with it. It really could do with it. Why do those people walk through the aeroplanes? Really frustrating. But yeah, if you want a small business jet and you've got bored of the Citation or the CJ4, yeah, it's very good. So have a look at it. So I'm going to leave it there for today. Let's just watch them walk straight through the plane again. There they go. And then they're going to walk through the wing on their circular path. It's like watching a slightly distorted version of Westworld, isn't it? Where they got caught in a loop. yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you again soon.